Hello, my name is Jean Svarich, and I will continue with the second presentation of higher education in the Industrialization Era of 1870 to 1944, otherwise known as the time of university transformation. I have chosen to describe the student and faculty sections of this presentation. At the beginning of this era, there were only 63,000 students enrolled in higher education in America. The nation had around 250 institutions of higher learning, with less than 12 instructors at most institutions. The University Transformation Era saw a lot of change in the demand for higher education as more and more Americans decided to pursue a college education. Some factors that contributed to this was the fact that there were not enough apprenticeships in the new country for everyone to learn a trade, while at the same time more professions were requiring some type of college education. Also, as Katie Fletcher mentioned, the innovation of the junior colleges helped to increase student enrollment. Another factor that increased enrollment stemmed from the fact that different professions required students to finish a bachelor's degree. For example, the teaching and medical professions started requiring a 4-year bachelor's degree. One of the greatest motivations was the belief that higher education could help one to obtain another class of living. Bledstein in 1976 summed up this ideal by stating, "In a nation without an effective apprenticeship system and without a significant gentry, the school diploma more and more served as the license with which an individual sought entry into the respectability and rewards of a profession." As you can see by the chart on the right, enrollment was steady in the late 1800s and really spiked in the early 1900s. In 1870, the young nation had 2% of their 18-year-olds enrolled in college. In 1890, 3%. In 1900, 4%. In 1910, 5%. In 1920, 8%, with a doubling of that figure of 18-year-olds attending college in 1940. An interesting fact to note about the increase in student enrollment is that in 1870, America could boast of more institutions of higher education than in all of Europe. As noted in most eras, admissions requirements changed in the Industrialization Era from 1870 to 1944. Requirements varied over time and from college to college. Some of the main subjects that were added to the already expected requirements had to do with physical geography, modern languages, and physical science. Harvard led most of the innovations in this era. However, Princeton and Michigan soon followed suit. Harvard emphasized the strong background in mathematics, and Princeton led the way in requiring a strong background in English. Other institutions followed suit, requiring an English composition, which later became the essay requirement that has extended into modern-day applications. Most applicants were accepted because of academic merits, but sometimes alumni children or children from wealthy families were accepted without academic merit. During this era, the Scholastic Aptitude Test was developed first as a measure for the aptitude to study, and later for the measure of one's knowledge in a certain subject. A form of this test is still used by many institutions as an entrance examination. To the right, you will notice a picture taken in June of 1926 when 8,000 students took the Scholastic Aptitude Test for the first time. During this era, the universities began to reach out to students from across the nation instead of students just from their region. The use of the aptitude test facilitated this movement. During the Industrialization Era, emphasis was placed on the student as a whole, which increased the institution's involvement in the residential experience. The colleges and universities became a community within which a student could participate in fraternities, sports, debating societies, and many other extracurricular activities. Faculty felt responsible for the students' emotional and psychological characteristics. Student groups with activities beyond the classroom led to intercollegiate activities between colleges. Carrie Bush will share the financial import of these activities in Section 4. Emphasis on residence life impacted decades of students who connected with other students, forming lifelong friendships with similar goals. Not all activities centered around entertainment. Many students became involved in social issues, which led to organizations such as the National College Women's Equal Suffrage League in 1908. A graduate from Penn State, Alice Paul, is famous for her involvement as a leader in the suffrage movement. Now I want to note the transformation of the faculty from 1870 to 1944. During this transformational era, faculty took on a new dimension in institutions of higher education. Value was placed on them as professors instead of just being viewed as instructors or tutors. The raising of a profession brought with it a higher pay versus stipends or working for board. Professors became known for a particular discipline instead of having to teach multiple subjects. A ranking system was soon developed using titles that have carried into modern times, such as instructor, assistant professor, associate professor, and professor. William Rainey Harper, president of Chicago University, became famous for paying professors a good salary, with monies provided by John D. Rockefeller. He was able to choose the best professors, and many other college presidents joined the ranks of his faculty. The profession of the faculty was charged by the increase of graduate division and professional schools in a university system. Other professions, such as scientists, joined the ranks of the faculty in the late 1800s. Faculty were given more time for research at the prestigious research institutions. Research faculty started to join in groups requiring funding, which helped to bring about the academic departments. As soon as these were formed, there was concern about how much academic freedom faculty were allowed when teaching. The Association of University Professors was formed in 1915 to protect faculty freedom. They are famous for their statement of principle that they published in 1940. Harvard was the first university to grant a sabbatical leave in 1880. Different groups were formed from faculty joining together for research of different disciplines. Some well-known associations include the American Historical Association in the 1980s, the American Psychological Association in the 1890s, and the American Political Science Association around the turn of the century. Although the faculty during the Industrialization Era were promoted, the faculty did lose some of their rights, which is still reflected in modern times. First, the accreditation of the institution was taken over by institutional accrediting agencies, and secondly, the admissions criteria started to be enforced by administrators. At the end of the Industrialization Era, each institution of any size employed at least 85 faculty members. Christina Gibson will be presenting the next section, which includes curriculum and governance of higher education in the Industrialization Era, Section 3.